class, we're going to focus on helping you identify your skills. And that may seem obvious, but a lot of times what we see with folks that are making a career transition or looking for growth is they don't give themselves credit for the skills they have. So we're going to go ahead and dive into what that process is like and how you can identify the skills you know you have and those that you might not know you have. The agenda is going to cover our approach, how we think about it, how we think about skills, and how we define them. Then we're going to talk about natural strengths. Some might call those talents. Acquired skills, things you've learned. We're going to help you uncover those skills because, again, we all have these latent skills that maybe we don't realize are there. And then the energizers, which are the things that we have an ability to do and we like doing. So we're going to talk about how to identify those and then how to maybe grow that list of energizers. With really our intention is to learn how to identify and document your natural strengths, acquired skills, and energizers. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and jump into the class. In this section, we're going to talk about our approach to thinking about skills. So first, let's take a pause and think about the career exploration process and where this sits. Right. First, we want to understand our values and our style, those things that are inherent to us. Then our skills and our interests and the intersection of those two things. Then that allows us to explore career options and fit. We're going to analyze what those options are, build a plan, and then go get it. All right, so in this section, we're going to focus on skills. And where that sits in the broader framework of fulfilling work is it's at the intersection of style, value, and skills. And skills, when they intersect with style, are those strengths and talents, those things that we're pretty good at naturally. And then the skills and interests, the intersection of those is the energizers, the things that charge us up and get us excited. All right, so that is how we think about skills. And again, those things that are strengths would come natural, and those energizers. And our framework for thinking about skills are these natural strengths, that again, talents, things that come natural to us, these acquired skills, things that we've learned through experience or through deliberate practice, and then energizers. Why skills matter is that they are the currency of careers, because ultimately companies hire us for what we know, not what we want to know. And that doesn't mean that you can't pursue career opportunities where you can expand your knowledge and grow and learn on the job. But in the moment of getting hired, we got to make it clear to them that we've got these abilities because a company has a gap in abilities, and that's why they're hiring us to fill it. So let's talk a little bit about how we understand that. And look here, right? This is a job description. And if you look at a job description, they are riddled with skills. It is a company saying you need growth marketing, analytical capabilities. Just look for the word skill, capabilities, knowledge of. You will see that they are all over the place. And that is a company telling us you need to have these abilities. And so that's why it's so important to go through the process of understanding your skills and exhaustively documenting all the skills you have. And most importantly, the ones that you take for granted, things that you just come naturally to you, that you just think you know how to do, or you don't even give yourself credit for knowing how to do them. You want to document them all because all these skills are what's going to enable us to get those opportunities that excite us. So as you plan your job search or your career transition, it's important that you identify what you know. And you got to dig deep and do that self-advocacy here, because a lot of us will approach these things with humility and say, yeah, we're not that good at that. Or you want to list it all. You want to be your biggest champion. If you've watched our job searching classes, you'll hear us say that you are a salesperson and your product is you. And so you got to get comfortable understanding all those features of this product. And those are your skills and your abilities. And so that's why we really want to focus on skills and make sure we document them all. All right, so jumping into our first section on skills, which is natural strengths. Again, we might call those talents. We intentionally avoided that word because it's kind of wishy-washy. And so what are these natural strengths, these abilities that we're kind of born with? So let's define what a strength is. It's an ability that comes natural to you. Some of us have a natural ability to draw, sing, an ear for music. We might be more athletic, and we might be good with numbers. And they just come naturally. And that might be through nature or nurture, but we've developed to a point that we're in our career and these things are easier than others. And these are strengths, and we want to understand those, and we want to lean into them as much as we can. Now, some of us have strengths that we have no interest in doing, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, and energizers and drainers. But it's very important to understand these things that come naturally to us. And our work style is really a great kind of compass for finding those, because our work style will oftentimes tell us some of these things that come easy to us. And it's a good way to find them. You may disagree with some of them because, we're all different, but directionally, some of these things that come natural are oftentimes the ones that we take for granted. So this is where the work style assessment and the 360 in the work style could be really helpful, because you'll be able to more explicitly understand these skills that come easy, and especially in the 360, you'll be able to see it from others. And let's talk at a high level what you might be looking for based on your primary style. Remember that the ones and twos tend to get more energized from starting things and starting activities. The threes and fours tend to be more energized from finishing things and bringing things to conclusion. When we go to the other axes, the 2 and the 3 tend to have that higher people orientation and pursuit of connection. And the 1s and 4s tend to have more of that result orientation and pursuit of autonomy. Again, all these things are ands. It's very important for us that we continue to state that, because we're all things, but some of them just might more naturally energize us, and some of them may more naturally drain us. So if we look to our primary, that might tell us some of the things that come easy for us. And so revisiting these, the primary one or our one traits, because again, we all have all traits, but those one traits are going to come with straightforward communication, directness, being decisive. And I won't read all these because you can download the PDF or pause the video and watch them, but to give you a sense of, what comes from that oneness. The two-ness is that connecting with people, speaking, getting people excited and leading with influence. Those are going to be abilities that come with that two-ness. That three-ness is going to be where that patience and empathy comes from. Being able to follow up and be available to help, that responsiveness and that really good ability to listen, that comes from that three-ness. And then that four-ness is what helps us be analytical, quality-driven, good with numbers, and structure and designing systems. Again, we're all of these, and maybe, through our course of life, we've developed some of these abilities, but the main thing we want here is for you to leverage your work style to help surface things that you might take for granted, because that's the tricky thing with natural strengths, is because they're natural, we take them for granted and we don't value them as highly as others might. And so lean on your work style to help discover some of these natural strengths that you might have. Also really valuable here is the 360. I made a reference to it earlier, but this is where we may have these blind spots that we don't understand that we're good at this. And so when you do the 360, you will see how others perceive you and how others see these to be your strengths and abilities. So really focus on those words on the right, the dimensions of the 360, and look at where people put you and see if there is clustering there that you didn't give yourself high mark on. That will tell you that you do have these abilities and others do recognize them as strengths for you. And so now you want to make sure you document those, and when you ultimately go and pursue these career opportunities, you bring those to the surface if they're relevant to a job. In this section, we're going to talk about acquired skills. Now, these are things that don't come naturally to us and that we've picked up along the way. And the way that we define an acquired skill is an ability we've gained through learning, right? And that might be through deliberate practice, through experiences, or through formal education. But these are things that we've worked to learn and gain. And the way we start to find those is look at times you've documented your abilities. So go and get your resume and look at your achievements. Look at the things that you've written, that you've said you've done. And now you can start to see these skills. And they might be very granular or they might be more broad and strategic. But you want to start to document these skills because we want to uncover and catalog every skill we have, right? That is the key thing here. And that might feel exhaustive, but these are all these features to the product of you, and you want to understand them because when you need them to sell yourself, it's going to be really valuable to have them documented. And then you're also going to be able to go through the process of understanding which are the ones you actually enjoy doing and which ones you don't. It's important to recognize that a lot of us have these skills that we don't want to use. And that's really important towards finding work that's fulfilling and energizing for us. So looking at what we would call like the resolution of a skill, like the micro and the macro, because you want to really document both. So a low resolution, meaning like broad, not fine, sales, design, recruitment, right? Those are low resolution. High resolution, finer, more detail, gets down to like the tactic, the software that you know, the tool that you've learned, the technique that you've learned. And then we've got that middle that kind of sits in between. And when you're looking at career opportunities, some companies are going to talk about them in a high resolution and some of them are going to talk about them in a low resolution. There's a fairly high correlation to level of role. You know, the more senior, the more low resolution. The more junior, probably the higher resolution, because they're going to want very specific tools and tactics. And as you get more senior, you're going to be able to talk about strategies more broadly. So you're going to want to document them in all forms and do it in a way that's comfortable to you. You may want to start in the low resolution as these categories, or it may be easier to start in high resolution. Think about the tools that you know how to use and techniques that you have, and then you can cluster them as you go through that process. With that, we'll wrap up the acquired skills sections, and hopefully that gives you a framework to how to think about your skills. In this section, we're going to cover how to uncover your skills. I've made the reference a few times in some of the previous sections that we have these skills that we take for granted and we may not even know we have them. And sometimes people will, have thoughts. It's like, I don't know how to do that, or I don't have that ability. So we want to take a little bit of time to help you think about skills you might have and to help you realize that you've got these abilities that you maybe weren't giving yourself credit for. So we all have more skills than we realize. We know how to do a lot of things, and kind of going through that process of introspection and giving ourselves credit for these abilities that we have is harder. It's sometimes tricky. It's that self-advocacy and that self-promotion and bragging, which is kind of uncomfortable, but this is a time to do it, and especially to yourself, about yourself. And we want to think about times that we've done these things. Because again, you just may not be giving yourself that credit. We kind of put on these career blinders because we've picked a career path. In my case, I chose to study architecture, and I really thought about the world through the lens of architecture. But we should look beyond that. Let's look at times in our life that we've done other things. Going back to my example, somehow or another, I found myself being the tech guy for my whole family because I liked it. And that was one of the things that told me I really love technology and I wanted to be in technology all the time. Now, did I want to fix my mom's Wi-Fi? Not really. That didn't excite me, but there was indicators there for me. So what you want to do is think about these times in your past that you've done things and that you were fulfilled and energized by it, and you developed these skills. So did you plan a big trip? In school or in any kind of professional organization, do you jump towards planning these big things? Well, you've got event planning and project management in your abilities. Were you part of a team or a club? Were you leading? Were you organizing? What subjects did you excel at in school? Or what parts of subjects? Maybe there were certain categories of certain classes that you always did really good at. And then what have you been the go-to for? Going back to my example of, being the IT guy for my family, is like people come to me for that, and that's relative. Can I go be a professional IT person in a company? Probably not, but that is an ability I have. And in the right context, I might want to surface that and bring it up with people. So these are ways to help you reflect on your past and look at moments in your life where people were coming to you for things, or you stepped up and did it, and you had these skills and abilities. Now, we're not focused on whether you enjoyed it or not yet. What we want to do is document all those abilities that we have. So let's look at an example of times that we might have done things in our personal life that are actually abilities. As an example, say you've planned a wedding. That is a complex series of events. So let's think about the skills that you gained in doing that. you've got planning and organizational skills, thinking about where people are sitting next to each other and how the whole thing comes together. That's planning and organization. Vendor vetting, that comes with a budget and thinking about which vendors you're going to hire and getting bids. Then you're negotiating and you're working down the pricing and putting it all together, and then you're designing. So some of these you may have outsourced, you may have leaned on your network to handle for you, or some of them you might have done yourself. And the ones that you did yourself and you feel like you've built that ability, now those are skills. You should claim those skills, and you should feel proud of the fact that you have those skills. You may not want to say, I acquired them in the context of wedding planning, but the fact that you have those skills and you got proof that you've done it should give you the confidence to say you've got these skills. I've made this reference a few times that when it comes to our skills, we may have these blind spots. Again, if you have an ability with things, it's all relative, and we tend to be kind of our worst critic sometimes. You might say, yeah, I know how to do that, but I'm not that good at it. Well, the truth is, if you compare it to like a true novice, maybe you're incredible at it. And time again, we've seen that self-evaluation is really tough because we don't have a context to benchmark to. So be generous with your skills and ask others, because that's going to be a way for us to know. You might ask somebody, hey, what am I good at? And they say, well, you're really good at sales. And wow, I would have never imagined that. I just kind of like interacting with people. It's like, no, you actually have quite a good ability to convince people, to buy products that you really believe in. And so this is a way for you to learn about skills that you have that you might not be giving yourself credit for. And when you ask people, you can ask them in this very specific way. And here's some questions that you could email, or you can talk to someone and ask them. But what are 3 to 5 of my greatest skills? What do you think comes naturally to me? What do I know a lot about? What do you come to me for? Or what kind of work do you think aligns well with my skills? You can ask people you've worked with, past managers, direct reports, colleagues. And these are going to give you insights. A lot you might realize, but others you might discover things that you didn't know you had. Maybe you don't give yourself credit for being a great manager, but your team thinks you are. So this is a great way to go and unpack and discover these abilities that you have. In this section, we're going to talk about energizers, which sit at the intersection of a skill and an interest. And you're most likely going to feel satisfied with your work when it's engaging you in things that you are both skilled at and enjoy. So that means it's an ability and an interest, and we're sitting at the intersection of those two. And so what we want you to do is think about where these skills sit in this matrix. You've got these two extremes. Is it a skill? Is it not? In other words, are you good at it? Or are you not? Then I want to do less of it, or I want to do more of it. When you start to plot skills on this matrix for yourself, it's going to really tell you a lot about the kinds of things that you want to be doing. We then codify these 4 quadrants in this way. The things that are a skill, but that we don't want to do more of, we call that an asset. That is something there that you've got tucked away that's got value, and use it if you need it. That's not to say to always do this, because then that's going to drain you, but it is an asset and it has a value, and we shouldn't devalue it. Then if we go down one, there's the things that we want to do less of and that we're not good at. The more you can have clarity on these, the better, because these are going to be the ones that set you up for failure. You're doing it, you don't enjoy it, and you know you're not good at it. So you want to speak up and be vocal about not doing these things, and be mindful about where you're going, and that those environments and those roles and those jobs are not going to present these situations where you have to do things that you don't like doing and that you're not good at. Next is potentials. These are things that you want to do more of, but are not a skill yet. Right? So you've got an interest, you're curious about pursuing it, but you don't really have that ability yet. So we call those potentials, because as you go filling in that ability and move them up, Well, now these are energizers because you've got that mastery. And so we like to be mindful about what these potentials can be because sometimes it's tricky to get hired for potentials. But as soon as we have that mastery, then they can go over to an energizer. And then energizers, right? These are really the ones we want to focus on. It's those things that we like doing, we want to do more of, and that we're already good at and we can get better. So it's doubling down on our strengths that we enjoy and that are interesting to us, and those tend to energize us. And that really creates this virtuous cycle of doing the things we're good at. Then by getting to do more of it, we get better at it, and that becomes a compounding, career energizer. And these are really important, and you can move things into that category. Assets, sometimes if you recontextualize it, it might actually be an energizer. And those potentials, as you build up those skills and you get opportunities to practice and build them, well, then they become energizers. And we really want to move things up into that top right quadrant. We've built a tool to help you start to understand this and to document all those skills with a bunch of pre-populated skills, but there are hundreds of thousands of skills in the various skills databases out there, so obviously you can add your own. So let's go ahead and pop open this workbook and take a look at how to use it. All right, so we're here in the workbook. It's a Google Sheet. You can download it and make a copy or open it up in Excel. And what you want to look at is there's 3 tabs here. There is the skills identifier template, the skills database template, and then the My Skills List template. And you'll be able to use these from scratch, and fill them out. But let's go ahead and look at the examples so you can see how they work. And the skills database is probably where you want to start. We've got a long list of skills, and then you can just go check on and off the ones that you want to include. And you want to be mindful of which ones are your current skills and which ones are your potentials. So these are things you want to learn, that you're excited about, and these are the ones that you already have an ability. We didn't get too focused on how good of an ability you have. Are you a master at it? Are you a novice? Because that matters, honestly, a little bit less. That's more for you to manage and sort of develop that mastery. But what are the ones you want to learn and have an ambition for? Those are on this side. And it's the same skill, just allows you to check it here. So go in and exhaustively check off all the things you're excited about. What that's going to do is then populate your skills. And these are going to be the ones from the skills database. If there's things that we're missing or you don't want to go through that whole list, you can just write in your own. And then what you're going to start to do is rate if you want to do more or less of it. And that's going to put it on that axis of more or less, I want to do it, don't want to do it. And you can then identify all the skills that you have and all these potentials. Again, you can either use the database or you can fill them in your own, and you can start to fill in the other parts of the workbook to find these other skills. What are those things that come from your work style? What are some that you could have pulled from your resume? What is some feedback you got from other people? And what might be some of those other skills? Then, once you have that, you can go to the My Skills List example. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull out the things that are energizers, potentials, and assets, because it's going to do that cross-referencing of the skills you have, the skills you want to have, and those that you want to do more of, and those that you want to do less of. What's not documented as on here is the drainers, because let's not waste time on those, so we don't list them out. But going through this workbook should help you get a better understanding of what your energizers are, what those potentials are, and what those assets are that you have that you can lean on in the future, for potential career opportunities. Because like we've said, companies want to hire you for what you did, not what you want to do. So know that you have these assets and that you can leverage them, but that you kind of slowly but surely want to take them out of your day-to-day because they're not that in that energizing category. All right, so with that, we will jump back over to the presentation and look at another very cool tool. Another tool that we highly recommend for looking at career possibilities and you're exploring your skills is on LinkedIn. It's called the Career Explorer. And it's focused on occupations and the different kinds of skills. They looked at a ton of LinkedIn profiles. I don't know if it was all of them or some subset, but they go by person and then they can see what are the skills needed for an occupation. So if you go to some of the titles you've had and the roles that you've had, that might list out skills for you and show you skills that you have and then just maybe you haven't documented, and you can start to add them to your profile. You can either add them on LinkedIn or add them in this workbook so that you have it for yourself. But it's a really great, powerful tool, and again, it'll surface tools. And really the point of this is being exhaustive about documenting all these skills you have, because they're going to help you explore potentials and see which career opportunities your skills map well to. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this section. All right, so that does it for the Identifying My Skills class. And honestly, this is one of my favorite classes we have, because so many times we're hard on ourselves and we might say, I don't know what skills I have. But when you go through this process, you really get to boost yourself up and see all these abilities you have that maybe you didn't realize you had. And we are all just this wealth of experiences and things that we've done, and they can all be recontextualized in these very cool ways. Again, if you planned a wedding, you can project manage. You may not have a project management certification, but you can manage things from start to finish and get them done on time and on budget. And so we really want to think about these times in our life and the activities that we've done that surface these skills to us, because those are what's going to make us marketable. And the ones that we want to do are going to be the ones that charge us up and get us energized about our work and move us closer to that fulfilling career that we're all after. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the class.